And the next point is there will be some questions where when you will be knowing answers, I mean, more than that, because for example, after writing mains and practicing so much, you have so much content with yourself. So it so happens that we should keep on telling more and more, but you should know where to limit the point, and don't have to overstep an answer, and you don't have to be too optimistic or too pessimistic about any answers. For example, when it comes to how do you solve, for example, poverty in a very small village. This is like something, when I ask you to write 200 words on it, you can write 400 words on it, because you can write different angles, economically, strategically, you can talk about it politically, legislatively. But there has to be some limit where you think you should draw a line ki, this is where I need to stop my answer, and this is where I should put forward my points. So you don't overstep, and don't be too optimistic, because the panelists also know ki these are such big problems which are going on in a country for a long period of time. It's not that we are going to solve it in a day or a two, in a 5 years, 6 years. It's a slow process, and it's a goal, it's a long-term goal. So it should go on slowly, and it should incremental change would happen in the society. That's when there would be a sustainable in the system. So we should know how to limit ourselves when it comes to answering. And there might be instances wherein you might actually disagree with the panelist. I mean, you do not have to you don't have to actually straight away counter their thing. Let them put forward their points. Based on that, you listen to their points, you could agree to their points, because there would be some gravity in their points also. Along with that, you should also put forward your points, saying this, I mean, I do agree with your points, but this is what I think. So this is important. The reason being, you should not nod your head for whatever they say, but it's not that you should have to be too strong-headed to put forward that your point is the right point. So there has to be a balance between the two. So there will be, so this will actually help us in building. They'll understand that you are able to balance that opinion. This usually comes in, again, I'm telling you, this also again plays a very important role when you're into the service. There you will face so many people where it might be politician, it might be your seniors, it might be a boss, it might be anyone who would be strong-headed with his opinion. But it's very necessary, it's very important that you put forward a point and you have to take a stand. But that has to be a polite way of taking that stand. And as I said, you don't have to nod your head for everything, whatever they say. If you disagree, you politely disagree with whatever they say. And there might be instances wherein they might throw questions at you, which you'll have, I mean, as I said, you'll have, I'm not able to recall. So it's for example, I'll give you an example of this. When I entered my interview hall, the straight away asked me, when I entered, my interview was in 2015, and there were a couple of new schemes which were launched in the 2014. So they asked me list all the government schemes announced in an entire year. So it was an absolutely tough question, and I had no idea what I had to answer. Only few questions which I was able to answer, schemes which I able to recall. So I recalled, but then they kept this initially. Then I said this is what I could recall. Then they gave me a hint. Then again they asked me to recall. So this went on, but at one point of time, it was so happened that they were really angry. Ki, am I here to take your interview, or am I here to help you out? So that's when I mellowed down and said this is what I could recall. So they were happy with my answer, because they were not expecting me to recall all the answers. Because one of the panelists intervened and then said, I also want to know the date on which they were announced. For example, it was August 15th when Make in India, I still remember, it was Make in India scheme was announced. It was October 2nd when they had announced the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So all such schemes are announced on a very specific days, which had a national importance. But if you remember, it's well and good. If you don't remember, it's not a bad thing. It's okay if you don't remember. You just need to politely answer that. It's okay, politely you need to answer that I was sorry sir, I'm not able to recall all the schemes. So they mellow down, and then they take out the next one, and they move on to the next questions. And when the interview goes on, it also depends on how you guide them. For example, if you ask them, if you tell something, for example, just as I said now, as I was telling you, with respect to the schemes, when they asked me to name the schemes, it could have gone straight away after I said October 2nd, make Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. I could have directed them into going into the sanitation part, how are we going ahead in sanitation, improving the sanitation process in the country and all. But it went on nextly for me, it went on to the different way. It went on to my optional subject and all. So this is, I mean, it'll entirely depend on you how you guide them. So if you go in depth, and if you go keep on pressurizing on certain things, they'll go in depth, and there will be some point where we might not have an idea. I'm not saying you might not have an idea, but there will be some breaking point where you'll not be able to answer the question. So rather than that, you should be able to direct them in specific way, so that you don't lose a track of the series of questions and the answer which you could be able to put forward. And there are also instances wherein uh, 2 or 3 people could throw questions at you, and they'll not even wait for you to answer for one person. So this also happened in my interview when I was the panelist was the main interview forum was under HC Gupta sir. So and sir was asking me about public admission. There was one person who was sitting on the left. He was throwing questions on the PubAd. Then the right one person was throwing questions about the current affairs. This usually happens. They try to test you. How do you handle the pressure, and how do you manage when people are throwing questions at you, which usually happens when you become an IS officer. The people start questioning you. They'll in the meetings and in the public forums and all. So that actually decide how you handle the main situation. So what I did was I had to give utmost importance to the head person, the chairperson. So I answered his question. Then accordingly, I requested people, the panelists, to repeat their questions, and I answered them. So they were a bit. They do get annoyed because we asked them repeatedly, but it's better rather than we assuming that this person might have asked question this, and we partially listening to their question and giving our answer in a partial way. That will usually impact our score also. And the next, when I was looking at the DAF of all the 3 kids here, there were certain hobbies put forward by all of them. One person was talking about the football. One person was talking about the yoga, the NCC, mono acting, the dance. A very interesting one was conversation with the strangers. So starting with the football, the person who has written it, I would request that person to have an idea about the size of the football to the size of the ground, and what are the recent developments or changes which have happened in the football. For example, you could have seen that European League, which has happened as of now. They're getting it was entirely like different leagues happen in the Europe, and then the best person comes out and plays for the Champions League. But now the countries in the Europe they have got a fixed spot in it. So how does it impact the European League, Championship League? So this is something, the current affairs which you need to know, and you have to link it with your hobby. It should not be just that I love playing football, so I just know I just play my football. So you should know intricate details of the football also, the size, where India stands in the sport, and what more can we do to improve the sport. The famous personality of the sport is in the country, and your famous personality. They might ask you, if I ask you to pick one footballer, whom do you gonna pick? His statistics, his numbers, you should be knowing. There are always the jerseys they wear, they have a specific numbers over them. The logic behind it, it all sounds key. Where does it come from? But they expect us to know key, if I hobby is something which we love and which you like to do when given an opportunity. If I give a spare time, this is what I would like to do. So you should be knowing about it. So for me, it was the swimming. So I had to know right from the length, the width, the depth of the water, the clothing which were being used. And that was a time when Michael Phelps had won 8 golds in 2002 2012. So the kind of dress he wore, the how did it affect his drag. So all these things, intricate details, you should know about the field, I mean the hobby which you mentioned. For example,